Hey everybody, it's Brian again. Week 5, having our discussion about which of these speeches are the best. I just watched all three of them back to back. So the first one, of course, is one of the most famous speeches in history with Martin Luther King. He did definitely captured my attention. How can he not? That's a very stirring speech. I think it's safe to say all three of these speakers were very well prepared and organized, so it's not even really a question for this discussion. On the body language with Martin Luther King, the thing that I noticed the most is it started out, he was extremely reserved. You didn't even see his hands. He was looking down a lot. But he built crescendo as the speech went along, and by the end you saw him pointing at the sky and having his hands up and looking up and around at everybody and at the sky. So it was kind of part of his delivery that he started out slow and built to this crescendo. I think the turning point was where he had the line, they'll never be satisfied until justice rolls down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I remember that part well. The other thing he did was, you could really tell that his background as a preacher came through in the way that he orated. He had almost kind of a monotone, although he did modulate some of the words. And it was stirring in that, again, it had that build, that slow build, but also very reasonable tone. You'd hear him and he was electrifying his base, but at the same time keeping them focused on dignity and nonviolence. I mean, it'd been pretty easy during that period of time just to go out and get people riled up and get them to go, start doing things they might regret later. But he had a way of giving them the strength through his speech, which I thought was fantastic. The only thing he could have maybe done a little bit differently was, like I said, at the beginning, he didn't look like he was really looking at the crowd at all. It looked like he was straight up reading rather than orating. The next one I hadn't seen before, Severn Suzuki, definitely caught my attention. When she came out and said, we paid our own way to get here, and what a big deal that was and what that organization was. Again, well prepared. I did notice the room was only about half full, though. The body language was initially pretty reserved. She was hanging onto the podium, but of course she's very young, and that's expected. And other than her tone, it was a pretty minimal body language. She did make good eye contact, kind of moved around the room a little bit. The thing she did most effectively was shame the adults. She got her indictment of Western lifestyles across really well. I think that's part of what she could have done better too. It came across as very scolding. Some of the audience looked kind of amused by it. A lot of it was straight up reading, and I noticed that she had the 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper instead of the cards like we talked about in class. So maybe she could have done something different there. The third and last, Barack Obama, it caught my attention. God, he looks so young in that video. He talks, and there's a lot of parallels to Martin Luther King in that he feels like he's really telling truth. He's exercising humility, but he's also really telling it like it is. His body language was great. He had his hands in motion a lot. He wasn't nervous. He seemed very relaxed, and at the same time, casual, with the way that he presented himself. Like Martin Luther King, he started out slow and he built to a crescendo until he had the whole room whipped into a frenzy. I feel sorry for John Kerry coming on after that, because I think he really upstaged him. It was clear that he was already thinking about his run for presidency at the time. So there was the wind up. Some of the things he did good were, the pauses for applause and his word choices, his enunciation, his pacing, all that was great. There wasn't a whole lot he could do different. It was a great message and great delivery. Of the three, I think Martin Luther King was obviously the most stirring and memorable, but Barack Obama, you could tell he was really a talented and competent speaker. You know, he had all the tricks. He knew all the things to do. He knew about the eye contact and the body language and all those things. And they both shared that kind of reasonableness in their delivery and the slow build until everyone's really excited about what they're talking about. So that's what I got.